guys might notice I fit in really well here with my red Solo cup. Some of you may or may not know, but I suffered with throat cancer this year in September. I had a major surgery, so I keep my glass of ice water very close to me at all times, and it's become a running joke here in the West about the red Solo cup. I guess that's a redneck trait. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here. I really appreciate the chance to have dialogue with you guys and to be able to be a stakeholder at the table with you. And I know that, you know, some folks watched our show or, you know, met up with us in the field somewhere, and maybe, you know, your opinion of what Dwayne and I do might be different than what it actually is. And that's why I really appreciate these opportunities to be able to talk with you and to be able to actually show you who I really am off the screen and not that screaming maniac woman on the screen. Because as most people know, you react differently from fear, and your voice changes when you're upset. And so I'm a little grateful for the break from bounty hunting, because it becomes very mundane. And, you know, the constant crime and the constant drug addiction and all of those things that everybody in this room deal with on a day-to-day basis, you know, it sort of bogs you down in a negative space. And so, you know, I want to bring a little bit of different perspective to the pretrial movement, and I think that, you know, you'll see that there are a lot of sides to this issue, and it is a growing issue. It's a popular trend all across the country. There is a large movement to do away with money bail. Now, we've never considered ourselves money bail, but when you're giving a 30-second elevator speech to someone why bail bondsmen are bad, it was better to say money bail, because you have to pay money to get out. How many of you have had to pay traffic tickets for speeding? No? Really? Nobody in this room? Oh, okay. Most everybody. Okay, I was like, wow. You guys are the elite. I should leave. When you paid that speeding ticket, you felt it, right? One, when the cop got you, you felt, oh, shoots, he got me. Two, you felt remorseful for him catching you. But thirdly, you knew it was going to cost you what? Money. Money. This movement has gone so far that in Michigan, this same anti-bail bondsman movement, which is not you folks in this room, it's, you know, much higher, much bigger than what we get mandated to do. Like Rodney, you know, was mandated to make a pretrial service program, so he did. You know, some of the other counties maybe had a smaller pretrial program, and now it's big. But these guys have gone so far as to say that if you don't pay your traffic fines, if you don't pay your traffic tickets, nothing happens to you. Okay. So we can just go as fast as we want. We can just speed. We can just crash into people with no accountability, with no repercussions, with no deterrent, with no nothing. Why do we make people pay a fine for speeding? You don't want to put them in jail, because that's a little bit extreme for traffic, right? So you hit the person in their pocketbook, because that has meaning. Because people don't have millions and millions of dollars. Well, some people do, but nobody in this room does, right? So we budget our money. We watch what we're spending. We every month make sure that we have more than enough. Money to tithe to the church, money to buy groceries, money to take care of our families. And a traffic ticket wasn't in the budget. But you have to pay it nonetheless. And if you don't, you get a warrant out for your arrest, and then you're subsequently later on embarrassed again because the cop now sees that you have a warrant for your arrest. Now we go to jail. Now the humiliation factor is double. Now we're being fingerprinted. Now we're putting on a lovely orange shirt, and we're getting our photo taken in a color that is not flattering to anybody, except for this thing right here. But now, we want to say that if you're put in jail for that, you're let go free. So if you didn't pay the traffic ticket the first time, and you were arrested the second time, what makes anyone think that you will come back to pay it this time? If you didn't have the money to pay it the first time, you're not going to have the money the second time. And even if you had to post bail, now you had to pay a bondsman. Now you maybe have to get a lawyer. Now the thing is snowballing. But what we're doing in our society is we're going, oh, he didn't pay his traffic ticket. So now we're going to give him a free bond, a free lawyer, and probably probation, where he's going to land on your doorsteps. How many of you are probation officers? And how many are parole officers? And community corrections? Right on. So all of you deal with aftercare, right? We all deal with aftercare. After they've been arrested, after they've gone to jail, after all of these terrible things have happened. But now let's roll back. Didn't pay the traffic ticket, went to jail, got out on a free bond, then got probation. So now he's in your lap. How do you make him pay his fine? You can't. You can't. You can't. And then you become frustrated because you're trying to do your job, you're trying to help this guy, but this guy knows you are now powerless. Anybody feeling frustrated and powerless with their clients? Honey, put your hand down. It will become more and more frustrating, and it will become more problematic, because wiping out the bail bonds community is probably not going to solve the problem. It's probably not. It's going to probably increase the problem. And I can give you some examples of that. In St. Louis, Missouri, we had something called Ferguson. Big riot. A lot of people think that George Soros was definitely behind that movement. Proof that there was people behind that movement. Proof where they said, go out and wreak as much havoc as you possibly can on the town, and we will pay your bond and your lawyer. After this movement happened, the city of St. Louis, state of Missouri, implemented the pretrial, no money bail experiment in their town, with the goal of reducing jail overcrowding. 2 weeks ago marked their 1-year anniversary from implementing that system, and they found that their jail incarceration rate is up 21%. Up. This is a program that we gave them $20 million because they said they could reduce jail overcrowding by letting everyone go for free. But there's a flip side to that coin. Because the other side of the no money bail movement is everyone with a low-lying crime or misdemeanor gets out free, ollie ollie oxen free. Everyone else stays in. So whether you're innocent before guilty, or you have got a good case on your hands or whatever, it doesn't matter. You're going to sit there if the district attorney or the judge feel that you should sit there. Case in point, in New Jersey a year ago, Chris Christie implemented the no money bail, and they basically abolished their bondsmen. There are a few still sort of lingering on, and they're holding on, hoping that the strong survive, and that may happen. But what they did was they took away your constitutional right to bail, and they put in preventative detention. A gentleman by the name of Ed Forshine, you might know him by his nickname, Weed Man, New Jersey Weed Man. He sold chicken wings after 11 o'clock at night. Minor crime, non-violent, wasn't hurting anybody, but what he was doing was pissing off the jurisdiction. He was pissing off the cops, the legislators, senators, the governor. He pissed off everybody. So when they went to try Weed Man, they decided that he was going to be held preventative detention. Folks, he sat there for 447 days for selling chicken wings after 11. And when they would come out to justify it, what they'd say was, oh, well, he intimidated a witness. Well, how did he intimidate the witness? Well, he called him out on Facebook. Okay, so intimidating the witness that was confidential to begin with is very strange. But nonetheless, he went through his case, he fought it, he was his own attorney, he won. They retried him. He won a second time. He was just recently released. Where was the ACLU? Where was the ACLU? 447 days you're being held for selling chicken wings? Folks, this is a problem. This is a problem. We in the bail community, we know that people who are first-time offenders and people who have low-line crimes, they should not be in jail. They should not have big bonds. They should not, they should not have to go through those things. There are bondsmen in this room, Katie, myself, my husband, a couple of others. We don't want to get up and do $300 bonds. We don't want to do $500 bonds. We don't want to write them. We don't want you to give those to them. But let's break down what a $300 bond is. Graffiti, peeing in public, parking your car where you shouldn't, harassing, calling names at the Walmart. You know what I mean? This dumb stuff. Dumb stuff. Those are small bonds. Those are people should not be going to jail. We totally 100% agree to that. But what we cannot have is a revolving criminal welfare door installed at the jail. And what I mean by that is the guy comes in, he gets his fingerprints, and he goes right back out on a PR bond. Then he goes over to the next county, steals again, comes back in, gets his second PR bond, and he goes right back out. And then what happens on Tuesday? When he does it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, how many bonds should a person get for free? See, that's what this movement doesn't account for. It doesn't have any common sense parameters put on it. It doesn't have any stop gaps. It doesn't say when a person should finally have to meet a bail bondsman. When? Should it be on the first time, the third time, the fifth time, eighth time? We would take all those things. Hey, Lindsay, could you pass out the recommendation? All right, Lindsay. Lindsay's going to pass out. I was going to give you guys this big, huge packet, and then I decided against it because it's too much intensive reading, and I'm sure you guys get enough of that. So what I'm going to do, and also, I had this long speech prepared for you today, and after speaking with Rodney last night, I'm kind of chucking my speech to the wind. Actually, I'm going to pass it out and let you take it home, and you guys can read it at your leisure. But I felt like connecting with you and letting you know that we believe in pretrial. We want pretrial community corrections. We want to work together with parole and probation. We want to coexist with you guys. We have for 186 years. Do you know that? Bail bonds is 186 years old. So what I'm passing you out right now is something called non-monetary release recommendations. And I've given this out state by state by state by state, talked about it till I'm blue in the face, but if you read this, it will seem like common sense to you, okay? If the common sense parameters were release as a first-time option for violation of traffic laws, and look at what traffic laws can be completely decriminalized. There's so many traffic laws and rules that could be decriminalized that you would never go to jail. You would pay a fine. Of course, your car or whatever would, have a hold put on it if you don't pay your fines and costs or whatever, but that would be eligible. Also eligible would be released as a first-time consideration for first-time offenders with no criminal history. No-brainer, right? Never been in trouble, never done this before. You folks have a really good chance of being able to help them out, get them through the system, and never see them again, okay? Because they're the first-time offenders. They're scared already, okay? Third one would be release as a first consideration on individuals with no failures to appear. It's okay if you have a criminal history, but you've always came to court. So we have no problem with that, okay? But then you skip down into the non-eligible, currently out on bond for a felony or misdemeanor. You don't get a free bond. If you have failed to appear on a felony, you don't get one. If you're on bond currently, if you're already on a pretrial bond, if you're out for escape, yeah, you don't get a free bond. You just escaped. Jeez. You know, any kind of sex crime to a child, assault to a child, any kind of really horrendous child crime, you don't get a PR bond. I mean, these, like I said, does anybody have any problem with these? These seem like common sense rules, right? Is anybody awake in this room? Is it too early for you folks? I'm sorry. You can come back at 6. These seem like common sense, right? The pretrial people, ACLU, NAACP, balked. They balked. They said, no way. We were like, what do you mean, no way? If they're already out on bond, you're going to give them another free bond? If they fail to appear for your pretrial release, conditional release bond, do we give them another one? Because pretty soon, everyone in this room becomes ineffective. Excuse me. You may get rid of the bail agents, but does that really serve your purpose? It really doesn't. And you know, I hate to say this, and I hated to say it to Rodney last night, but how do you get them to do what they're supposed to do? If you can no longer violate them for hanging around with a felon, association is now gone. Dirty UAs, you can't put them in jail for dirty UAs. And they won't pay their fines and they won't pay their costs. And you put them on an ankle bracelet, they can't pay for an ankle bracelet. They couldn't pay for a bond, they can't pay for an ankle bracelet. And I can tell you, I know so many people across this country who are using ankle bracelets every single day. And I'm offended. My husband and I brought the ankle bracelets into our office. We only brought in 3 because we just wanted to just try it out, see if we could control some of our more dangerous people. 2 out of 3 cut them off. 3 out of 3 couldn't pay for them. Couldn't pay for them. I mean, it's a very small test, but you know, nonetheless, it's a realistic test. But moreover, your rights, you have no rights on your ankle monitor. You know, you're walking around and people are like bedazzling them these days. Bedazzling their ankle monitor. I was at a bail bonds convention in Texas a couple of months ago, and a woman had bedazzled things. I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. She had some made out of bandanas. She had men's, women's, you know, fancy, not so fancy. Ones that were flesh tone. Things that had like a little puka that you could put like your ID. I was like, we have lost our minds. This is terrible. We are tethering people. We're tethering people for money, for small crimes, because we what? Don't want them to pay a bail bondsman? Let's go back to that traffic ticket. What happened when you had to pay the traffic ticket? It hurt you. I get very upset when I hear people say, they're in jail because they're poor. What? So you mean the cop just drove down the street and he goes, are you poor? Are you rich? Are you poor? No. People are in jail because they broke the law. And I don't care how small that law was. 2 days ago, I got into it on a radio show on the Nancy Grace and Dan Abrams show with an attorney out of Texas who told me my client had to post a $2,500 bond because she drove with her 3 children without a driver's license and without insurance. A minor crime. This is terrible. And I got into it with the gentleman. I said, you know, the operative word there was crime. It was a crime. I'm sorry, this woman with no driver's license put her 3 kids back in the car with no driver's license and with no insurance, and she drove again? And you want the whole world to just dismiss these minor crimes because they're minor? Who are they minor to? All of us. Are they minor to the victim? No. The victims of this country are completely outraged. They are outraged. Some of these folks are being mandated to be released within 24 to 48 hours of their arrest. Some victims aren't even out of the hospital yet. They haven't even been able to speak to the cops yet. They haven't even been able to even speak their side. There's a gentleman. How many of you remember the Polly Klaus case? Anybody? Polly Klaus was a 10-year-old girl who was abducted from her mother's home, beaten, raped, and killed. 10 years old. This happened in Northern California. That gentleman made a foundation called the Klaus Kids Foundation. Sorry, I'm looking for his. This man went all across the country, like a little bit like John Walsh did. Everybody knows John Walsh, right? Mm-hmm. After his son was killed. And he, Lindsay, can you find me that Klaus Kids Foundation letter, please? He went all around the country and he passed victims' rights laws that said that the victims need to be consulted before a person is granted bond. Are y'all familiar with that? If a person is released within 24 hours or 48 hours, there is no chance for the victim to say anything. Nothing. Here it is, I got it. See, you scared it out of hiding.
She's good like that.
He is circulating this letter all across the country and to Congress and to legislators opposing the No Money Bail Act. This is a letter from CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, one of the largest civil rights groups in America. Martin Luther King started this foundation obviously many years ago. The largest civil rights organization, bigger than the ACLU. They are against this because they represent people of color and they represent the minorities, and they know how hard it is in those communities. They know how hard it is to even get the cops to come. And when the cops finally do come and they drag that guy away, the whole community is cheering because they can sleep that night. But now, under this pretrial release thing, they're right back out there before you even had a chance to go to bed that night. This one here is from Bond, Brotherhood of a New Destiny. They're a very big organization. They believe in rehabilitating the man. You can rehabilitate the family. And they know that without any kind of accountability, without the threat of jail over their head, they're going nowhere. Some of you parole officers and probation officers, you know what I'm talking about, right? You got no threat. You can't even threaten them now that you're going to put them in jail because they're laughing at you because they know you can't. We have taken away all of the judicial authority from our judges, all the discretion away from our judges, because, I don't know, maybe we think they're stupid or something. I mean, they only went to like 40 years of college or something, and, you know, had to have private practice, you know, all this stuff to make these decisions, to be able to go through someone's past criminal history, to be able to determine whether that guy should get a bond or not. The bail bondsman, and I used this term with Rodney yesterday, we're like the emissions guy, okay? We didn't make the law that said you have to have your car emissioned. Somebody else did. We're just the service that lets you get the emissions. We are not out setting bond for anyone. We are merely the service that provides you with the bond that you need. The bail bondsman, years and years ago, 187 to be exact, was put into play because the 8th Amendment said that you had a right to non-excessive bail. And your bail became excessive if you had to pay the full amount in cash. $10,000 is a lot to come up with. $1,000 is a lot to come up with for some families. Some families can't come up with $200, $100, $50 even. But the families who don't want to come up with the $100 or $200, they're sick of them. I cannot tell you how many people call me up and say, don't you dare bond my son out. You let him sit there. And I go, you don't want to get him out? And they're like, nope. He's robbing my purse every night. He stole my car. He stole my credit cards. He's stolen my checkbook. I'm done with him. I want him to sit in jail. I don't want him dead. And because he is only doing what the drug tells him to do right now, I want him locked up where he can't get to the drug. And we're taking all that away. We're taking all that away by saying either everybody out or everybody in. Not everybody is of the same cloth. The governor of Nevada, this is a letter from the governor of Nevada. I will make this packet available to all you guys if you want it, okay? I will send a master copy to Rodney and to Katie. If you guys want one, they can send it over. I'm sort of like, you know, showing you my hand in poker, but that's okay. Anyway, the governor of Nevada, they had a unanimous bill, passed it through the Senate and the House, doing away with bail bondsmen, and said, we're going to bring in the Arnold risk assessment tool. Woohoo! The governor said, yeah, not so fast. And he vetoed that bill. And I'll just tell you why. He said that he commended them, and he thought it was amazing that they were able to come together on this issue. But the new and unproven method for determining whether a criminal defendant should be released from custody without posting bail, there is no conclusive evidence has been presented showing that the risk assessment method proposed in this bill are effective in determining when it may or may not be appropriate to release a criminal defendant without requiring bail. No proof, no evidence, no statistics. Nothing. Nothing. This year, the Bail Agents Association of the United States, my group, we brought a bill to Congress. It's called HB 2152. And it's a very small bill. It's 2 pages, and the first page is directions. It's a very small, easy bill. It's directed at pretrial service programs all across the country who get monies from the Burn JAG grant. Does anybody know what the Burn JAG grant is? It's a huge pool of money that's meant to go to criminal justice, okay? But there's no accounting for it. So we went to Washington and we said, well, who gets the money? Well, they didn't know. We said, well, how much goes to the pretrial release workers? Well, we don't know. We said, well, what do you mean you don't know? You won't give money to the military unless they account for every dollar. Where did it go? You got $10 million, did you buy tanks? Did you buy bulletproof vests? Did you buy ammo? What'd you buy? But we're giving $20 million, $40 million, $60 million, $80 million to pretrial service programs all across the country, and we don't know how many people they put out. Did they come back? Was there any recidivism? How many bonds did you do on them? There is no data whatsoever. The Democrats, ACLU, NAACP balked. Oh, we can't have a bill like that. The debate on the floor was the most ridiculous debate I ever heard. And if I wasn't a bail bondsman, I would have still thought, and these are the geniuses that we have put in charge of our country. They're like, why should we have to have the pretrial people do reports? Oh, I don't know. We're sorry, we'll take it back. Thankfully, this bill has passed through the House. Okay, it passed 221 to 187. That's not, I mean, that's tight. That is a tight vote. It's a document, people, about transparency. All we want to know is it working? Does it work? If I take 50 people out on bail right now in my office, I know if they come back. Because if they don't, the county sends me a bill for the full amount of the bond. And then I trigger my big daddy back there and I go, hey, go find that guy, bring him back, I can't afford that. Because they're gonna hit me in my pocketbook. They're gonna hit me in my pocketbook where it hurts. Because if I make a mistake like that and I put somebody out on bond who shouldn't be out on bond, I have to pay for that mistake. You might be surprised to know that the state of Colorado has a law here that says if you are released on a pretrial release bond and you don't show up, the district attorney is supposed to collect that money. Surprising, huh? The DA's Association was surprised to hear that as well. Which is why the no money bail bill this year down in Denver failed. Because what's good for the goose is apparently not good for the gander. Everywhere I go, I hear the same script over and over, and I'm sure you guys have been given the script over and over and over again. It's not right to have people languishing in jail because they're poor, just because they cannot afford a bond. We shouldn't keep people in jail. We were with some high muckamuckas. You probably don't know what that means. High muckamucka in Hawaii means big shots. Okay? You're the top guy. So we were at some high muckamuckas at Home Depot 2 days ago when we first got in, and they told us that the new mandate has come down that they should no longer stop shoplifters. And they have given this directive to their security people. Don't stop anyone shoplifting because they will not be prosecuted anyway. The police cannot even give a ticket unless they stole more than, well, I'm not sure about this state, but California's 1,000, Hawaii it's 750. I think it's 750. Rodney, is it 750 here? What is it? 500. Okay. Well, I would be watching the legislature because I'm sure they'll be trying to raise that to 1,000, 1,200. Folks, do you realize what this does to the consumers, to the public, to the people? If the big box retailers are being robbed on a day-to-day basis for 1,000 for this guy and 500 for that guy, do you know how many thieves go into Home Depot a day? A lot. A lot. There's probably 200 Home Depot stores in the state of Colorado. And they've told their security people not to grab them. Like their jobs are going to be obsolete pretty soon. They'll all lose their jobs. Why have the security team if you can't do anything about it? They've been told to follow them out and get their license plate number, and they'll write it off on their insurance. Wow. So now the insurance companies are really going to take a hit, right? And I say to people, they go, but he was poor. And I go, well, of course he was poor. He wouldn't have robbed you. Because people who have don't really go around doing that. People who have jobs and who are trying to make it good in society, they pay for their items at Home Depot. They don't steal your car because they have one. I mean, it's an obvious equation to say he stole because he was poor. I get it. Look, if somebody was in my store stealing a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter because they're starving, you know what? God bless you. Take the peanut butter. Take the food. Here's some more food. Here's some milk. But that's not what they're stealing, guys. They're stealing big ticket items. They're stealing clothes. They're stealing jeans. They're hitting up Pier 1 for whatever they can get. Then they go to a fence and they sell it to the fence. Then they take their cash and then they go to the what? Dope man. So if you think about it on average, and you know, my husband hates it when I say this, but I was married once a time before. He thinks I lied about being a virgin. No, I'm teasing. Totally teasing. The person that I married was a friend of his, and actually I was very young. I was about 19 or 20 years old, and I was being very spiteful because I wanted a dog. So I married his friend. Pissed him off. That sort of backfired on me. Okay, that didn't backfire on him, it backfired on me. Because this guy, lo and behold, had this massive criminal history that I obviously didn't know about because I was too young and too naive, and we didn't have Google at that time. That's right, bail bondsmen were here before Google, we were here before Facebook, before MySpace, before Tinder, we were here. So, he would get up every day. He had no driver's license. He had an old Maverick. Does anybody know what is a Maverick? Green. That should have been my first inclination to run. It's like, this guy drives a green Gremlin, I'm out of here. So he would get up every day in his unlicensed car and his unlicensed butt, and he would go down to the methadone clinic. They're on time. On time, people. Maybe what we should do is, they don't get their methadone until they come to court. And we can give it to them at court. That might get them there on time and quicker, just a sidebar. Anyway, he would go down, he would get his methadone, he would drink his methadone, he'd get well. Okay, now he can function. Then he would grab his partner in crime, they would go down to whatever mall, Southwest Plaza, Cinderella City, for those of you who are dated and know what Cinderella City was. And they would rob like you ain't never seen a place robbed. She'd go in and do the robbery, and if anybody tried to stop her, he'd knock them out. He'd create the diversion so she could get away. Then they would take the stacks and stacks of Levi's and cameras and equipment that they had gotten, and they would go fence it down in Chinatown, which most of you might know it's at Alameda Federal. That's what we call Chinatown. And they would fence that stuff there. On the next day, they would hit Walmarts, Kmarts, and Targets for cigarettes. Stacks of cigarettes. People, this is when they used to keep the cartons right there. Now they don't do that anymore. They keep them like locked up so that you can't, I mean, they're 20 bucks a carton now, so they keep them locked up. But back in those days, they didn't keep them locked up, and a carton was $10. You know, or the carton was, I'm sorry, the carton is now $80, and the carton then was $20. They would take those down to the same guy in Chinatown, and they would sell those for $10 a carton. Hundreds of them. Which is what caused the rise of the tobacco. The cost of tobacco went up, then they started taxing it. The massive amount of theft that went on was astonishing. This was all before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then he would come home, go to the dope man, buy drugs, get high, and then he'd wait till dark. And then he would do home invasions. Now I didn't know any of these things, of course, until the man, Alice, we need to search your house. Let's search my house, or what? And then I find out that this guy's been doing all these things, and you know, this is horrible. This is 8th felony for him. 8th felony, 8-time felon. But you know what he never had? Drug rehabilitation. They had sent him to prison every single time. So this time we put him in a drug rehab down at old Pier 1. Pier 1. Everybody know what is that? I mean your community corrections. So you know it is a rough program. 1% make it. 1% are successful at Pier 1. But it is a strict program that basically tries for the first 30 or 60 days to get their heart right. Most of them bolt. They run. Some come back, get their head shaved, and they start over. I don't get the head shaving. I don't. Like that's some kind of humiliating something. Like they didn't go to prison. Okay, get your head shaved or go to prison. Let me think. I could use a haircut. Suddenly you can do with a haircut. Women, there's wigs. Right. That didn't work either. Because by the time he hit his 8th felony, that wasn't gonna work. But while he was in jail, they found all these things in pawn shops. They found tools, they found unbelievable amounts of jewelry, guitars, cameras, video equipment. I was so shocked and annoyed. I was just like, please God, put this guy in prison. Please put him in prison because I'm never going to be able to get rid of him if you don't. I was very young and I didn't, I knew that divorce was, I could divorce him, it'd be fine, but it was going to be really hard to divorce him. Like to just serve him papers was going to be challenging because this is a career criminal. This is somebody who knew the system so well. And when they get into the jails, these experienced criminals become writ writers. They become your legal lawyer in the jailhouse lawyer. And they sit there and they go, oh, you're going for a risk assessment? Here's what you say. They only have 8 questions or 10 questions. Rodney told me here in Colorado it's 12. Do you know how many questions are on my application for a bail bond? It's 8 pages long. Who are you? Who's your parents? What size is your shoe? Are you a twin? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a baby mama? How many times did you go to school? Did you finish school? Do you got a GED? What's your favorite bar or organization? Where do you hang out? Who do you hang out with? You ever been on parole or probation? Who was your probation officer? How many times have you been to jail? I want to know who's that guy. Who is that? Who am I getting out? But moreover, because my job is not like your job, I have to be able to find that person and bring them back. I can't just go, well, I lost Johnny. Hope he comes back. He ain't coming back. It's not. It's sad. I mean, we're laughing, and we're all friends, and it's cool, and it's funny. But in the real world, it's so not funny. Because there is nobody out there looking for these guys. I bet you guys would all love to saddle up, put on your stuff, strap on some mace. Yeehaw, here we go. Right? No? You do, I know you do. Parole hasn't paid right, they get a gun. But even that doesn't work in this day and age, because they got guns. Our clients got guns, you know? Dwayne and I have always been known that we don't carry guns, ever, for any reason. We don't have anybody on our team that carries guns. We don't like guns. And it's not because we're not in favor of the Second Amendment, because boy, we sure are. We think everybody should have the right to bear arms. You know, we really believe that. But we have 12 kids. And so for our own lifestyle, we did not want guns entering our home for obvious reasons. Look at the dad. Old habits die hard. I'm sorry, honey. I know you're rusty at felonies. They're not going to take your job. I promise. That's what we tell people. It's really, Doc's really rusty at committing felonies now. If he doesn't have a job bounty hunting or bail bonds, I don't know. Crime looks like it might pay better. You don't go to jail anymore, right? You just become very friendly with community corrections, right? One more thing I want to show you guys, and this is called the magic mirror on the wall, okay? How many of you have been told or have heard about the DC model of pretrial release? Everybody, right? DC's doing it, DC's doing it. It's working in DC. So let's talk about DC for a second. A budget of over $60 million at a cost of over $4,300 per defendant. Wow. But they're going to save us money and reduce our jail overcrowding. Guys, I don't know any county in Colorado who can afford $4,300 per bond. Do you? Greenwood Village, maybe? Cherry Creek? But I bet their budgets really aren't that high. And to just go further with that, the DC pretrial personal average compensation is $125,000 a year. Sorry, Rodney. Each pretrial worker makes $125 a year? But we're haggling over $100 for the defendant to stay in the jail? That's a lot of money, guys. DC pretrial employees monitor 14,142 defendants. So if you break it down and do the math, since there were 345 pretrial employees, that's an average of only 41 defendants per pretrial worker. Divided by $60 million, it worked out to $4,300 per person. Because what people forget is that not only are we letting the person out for free, we're not collecting a filing fee, we're not collecting their fines and costs, because remember, they're poor, which is why you had to let them out for free to begin with. So, free bond, free lawyer, no fines, no costs, no repercussion, no accountability, no nothing. Of those 14,142 defendants, 12,000 failed to appear. Does this surprise anyone? Look, there's a way for the bail bonds community to work cohesively with all of you, and we want to do that. We are, though, up against a movement that's basically out there going, look at New Jersey, it's working, it's wonderful, it's working in New Jersey, it's so great. Have any of you heard that? We did it in New Jersey, anybody? Well, here's a letter from the state senator and the 2 assemblymen who wrote the bill in New Jersey. And they say, Dear Speaker Rendon, we hear that you are considering the no money bail movement in the state of California. And he says, we were told that there would be no danger to citizens because the dangerous criminals would not be released. And on low-level criminals, only low-level criminals would be eligible. They are right now faced with a lawsuit from a woman whose son was gunned down in the street by a man who had been released on pretrial services 3 days before on a gun charge. A gun charge. They caught him with a gun, put him in jail, gave him a PR bond. He got right back out 3 days later and gunned down Christian Rogers, shot him 26 times in the street in front of the local supermarket where he had gone to get a pack of cigarettes for his dad. I think the Arnold Foundation risk assessment tool is flawed. It's flawed, it's not working. They're being sued in 3 states. The governor of Iowa just booted them out of Iowa. So Iowa booted them. Nevada said no. Colorado said no. New Mexico, wow. New Mexico's governor is named Susana Martinez. Does anyone know her or is familiar with her? She is an ex-prosecutor, and her husband is a state trooper. So they are painfully aware of personal recognizance bonds and whether they work or they don't work. She got a hold of this letter from Senator Van Drew. And, you know, I didn't go on to read it, but I will make it available to you. But he basically calls we should never have considered free bail to those who commit crimes where a citizen has been the victim. We may only catch a criminal once out of a multitude of crimes in which they commit. We know this is true, right? They are simply not afraid of committing crimes against citizens, and as a result, our crime rate has increased 23% since last January. This law is victimizing law-abiding citizens every day and is a complete disaster to our state. These are the guys that passed the law. Have you ever seen a legislator write a letter that says, we flubbed up? Never. They're never going to go out publicly and say, hey, my bad, we did that wrong. We shouldn't have done that. I think did you just pass out the Van Drew letter? Okay, so we just passed out the Van Drew letter for your own perusal so that you have that in your grips. So back to Susana Martinez. They could not pass a traditional no-money bail bill in New Mexico because she would never sign it. And they knew that. And so what they did was they came with a ballot initiative, and they called it Operation Safe Streets. So how many of you read every single thing about every single ballot initiative?
No.
Stop it. Just this guy. If you are the layperson who likes to vote and you're voting, you know, you get to the ballot initiatives and you're like, oh, I didn't read about any of these things. And so you sort of read the topic and then you're like, oh, that sounds really good. And you click the box. And lo and behold, they passed this dreadful thing in the state of New Mexico. New Mexico, where they already are one of the most dangerous places in America. Albuquerque is one of the most dangerous cities anywhere. Police chief was corrupt. Susana Martinez took her right-hand man and made him the chief of police, and they started cleaning things up. Right after that, they implemented this bail reform, and the whole thing went to crap. 2 weeks ago, she put out a viral video saying, beware of pretrial, beware of these free bonds. I don't like it when they say pretrial because I feel like it lumps too many people into the group. I like pretrial. My pretrial in Hawaii is a highly functioning pretrial. For instance, 22 people were arrested on Saturday. 20 people bailed out, either through pretrial or through one of the bail companies. 2 had to stay in because they had other holds from other jurisdictions. That's a highly functioning, very well-regulated pretrial release system. They work hand in hand with the bail companies. The ones that should get out through pretrial get out, and the ones that pretrial know should not get out through them stay in and wait for a bail bondsman or for the judge to make a different determination. That's how it should be. You are going to start seeing more and more people coming through your offices that shouldn't be there. And look, if everybody takes off their hat right now and they're not a community corrections person, y'all are just folks that live in the state of Colorado, who are parents, who have kids, who care about their community, who maybe go to PTA, who go to the church, you know, you go to potlucks, and you love your community. This little community right here is so charming and so wonderful, peaceful and quiet. I almost overslept. All I could hear was little birds tweeting, and, you know, so calm and peaceful. Because you don't realize what's running underneath the underbelly. And maybe not this community, but just up the road in Grand Junction, I know there's a lot of drug addicts up there. And they're laughing, because they're not going to jail. They're not going to jail, they're not getting their parole revoked, they're not getting their probation revoked, because they've made sure that the ACLU, NAACP, Black Lives Matter, etc., 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 has made sure that there's not going to be accountability, repercussion, or deterrent to what goes on here. And the only person that does stand for accountability, repercussion, and deterrent is us, the bondsmen. Because if you don't go to court, we are empowered with the power to go out, find you, arrest you, and bring you back. Period. That is the one thing that they have not accounted for community corrections, for parole and probation. They have not given the power of arrest, except parole. If you had the power of arrest, would you still have this job, guys? Any of you still want to go out there? No. It's tough. It's a tough thing. Listen, be kind to your bail agents in your communities. They don't want to get rid of you, and I'm sure most of you don't want to get rid of them. Be kind in your thinking, because honestly, they want to coexist with you. We don't want to write small bonds. We don't want to do municipal issues. And I'll tell you 2 reasons why. A $300 bond yields $50, okay? Now, I don't mind going down and posting a bond for $50. I don't really mind doing that. I know a lot of people do mind, especially down in Denver, where it takes you, 8 hours to get a bond done. Why, I have no idea. But when they fail to appear, we immediately have to, 1, hire a bounty hunter who's not going to work for $50. They're not going to go out and chase some traffic guy down for $100. So 1, we're going to have to pay the whole $300. But then we're also going to have to get a lawyer because a forfeiture happens. And then a forfeiture happens, we have to come to court, we have to wait court docket time. The DA's mad, everybody's upset, everybody's wasting their time for some ridiculous traffic ticket or whatever. Y'all get large tickets. No pun intended. It costs more for a bail bondsman to post those small bonds. And that's why we have always agreed that pretrial should take those people. But in some counties, did you know that they don't even interview those people? They only interview them if they've got a felony. Or now, a low-lying misdemeanor. But no one's dealing with the petty offenses. The municipal bonds, the municipal people still have to post bail. And you're just like, what? It doesn't make sense. I mean, look, there's so many people coming to the table with, their criticism of the criminal justice system, yet they don't come with any solutions. For me, I came to the table with solutions when I brought the, recommended changes for the personal recognizance bonds. I think that as individuals, you have to take a step back and you have to look at what's right for your community, what's right for your family, and what's really actually right and just. I'm sure that I am not the only person who has maybe hit a chord in your being about who we're releasing out on bond. And are they going to come back? And the likelihood of them coming back. The bail agent has always served an amazing service to the community because we're up at all hours of the day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Holidays, one of my biggest holidays is the day before Christmas. When people feel sad that their person has been sitting in jail for so long that they finally give up and go down and get them out. We act as counselors. We act as, parental figures to them. I take phone calls at 10 o'clock at night from people who, one gal called me last week. She goes, he is so violent. He is so upset right now. He's threatening to hurt me. I can't find his parole officer. I can't reach anybody. Where can I please talk to dog? I'm like, all right. I put him on the phone, and he spends the next 30 minutes talking the guy down, being kind to him. Sometimes kind. Sometimes he screams and hollers at him for 10 or 15 minutes, and then they both calm down, right? But that is all free to the taxpayer. That's part of our job. We act in that capacity. We drive them to court. We get them rights. We help them get jobs. That's really the asset to the community. That's really when you're really helping somebody. How many of you feel so great when a guy that you've been working with finally gets a job? It's just amazing. It is amazing. But there are people that are going to come through your office that are just flipping you the bird because they ain't getting no job. And you can't make them. And you're left stuck to deal with those people because if you do away with bail bondsmen, you're the only thing that they have left. You're the only one who's going to be out there to be responsible for these people that you release. And how would you feel if you were the pretrial worker for Jules Black, the guy who gunned down Christian Rogers? How would you sleep at night, knowing that guy was your client and he should have never been out? He should have never been free. Now look, a lot of people go, well, what's the difference if they get out for free or you make a few bucks to get them out? Well, the difference is I'm going to watch them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Why? Because my pocketbook is up on the line. You might not realize this, but bail bondsmen have to put up their homes, their cars, their assets. Sometimes they have to put up cash, $50,000 to $100,000, to even be given the authority to write bail. Do you all know that? So if the bondsman writes a whole bunch of these guys and they all don't come back, the insurance company may or may not pay that forfeiture, but they're darn sure going to make sure that the bondsman loses their home, loses their car, loses whatever asset they have. The repercussions to the bail agent for not doing their job is swift and harsh. You can't be poor and be a bail bondsman. You cannot. I also recognize that there are bad actors in our industry. But there are bad actors in every industry. There are police officers that cannot wait to get that uniform on because it empowers them. Only some. Because most of them are good guys who really want to help. They want to save people and they want to do good things. There are bad actors everywhere. So hate the actor, not the play. We get it. We in the bail industry, we do a horrendous job every day of trying to police our own industry. We don't want surety companies putting on bad actors who give us a bad name. There have been 8 bounty hunters arrested in the last 4 days. 5 in Tennessee, 2 in Idaho, and 1 in Indiana. These aren't even licensed bail agents. These are bounty hunters who jumped through a couple of hoops, who got a little certification, and 1 or 2 of them are qualified to do the job. But they get scared, so they bring their buddy, or they bring this guy with them. Over in Idaho, one of the bondsmen brought a friend of his with him who'd never been out on a bounty before. They were chasing someone who had a mental illness. He ran into the woods with an old gun that his grandpa had. Now the bail bondsman knew that that old gun was a rusty piece of you-know-what and wasn't ever going to work. But the kid who had no training and no experience who went with him did not know that and shot him and killed him. These mistakes happen because lack of education, lack of training, lack of responsibility, and because the surety companies don't want to be responsible for their agents that they hire. Those are our problems that we're dealing with. But as I said, hate the actor, not the play. There's so many people in the bail bonds community. I represent 15,000 bail agents nationwide. I am the president of the National Bail Agents Association. I feel like Winston Churchill, though. Most of them did not want me. They were like, we don't want Dog and Beth to be the face of bail. Too bad. Because we already were. When we decided to do a television show for 15 years on A&E, and then another 3 years on CMT, we had decided that we were going to show people what we really do. We're not really all, not all of them are crooked as a barrel of snakes. Some, not all. It's a mom and pop operation. We put up our own home, our own money, and we have to trust these people like they're our own kids. I know every person on bond. I can tell you who they are because I make them check in. I make them check in. I prepare them for you guys. And I tell them that. If you can't follow my simple direction of checking in between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m., which is 12 hours, 12 hours, they'll call me at 7 a.m., 6 a.m., 4 a.m. I'm checking in. No, you're not. You're checking in from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. And if you can't do one thing for me, the bail bondsman, how will you ever make it through parole or probation? You have to learn to follow directions. You have to learn that if you don't do what they say, they're going to throw you in prison. I can only just throw you back in county jail. They're going to throw you in prison. And that has helped immensely. But there's a lot of bail agents who don't want to talk to their clients. They don't want them calling their phone every day. I do. I want to know where they are, what they're doing, and where's my money. Because they are my sack of money with wings on it. And if they run away, so does my money. I take payments from almost everybody. I hate it, but I do it. But it's because people don't budget in a bail bondsman into their monthly budget, probably.
Some.
It only happens once in a blue moon. And so for that, we try to be compassionate and we try to be understanding about it. But in the same respect, we don't want to change the parameters of the bond that the judge put out. The judge said $10,000 for a reason, because he knew it would cost $1,000, because he knew you were going to have to get your grandma to co-sign for you. Bringing that grandma, that mother, that brother, that sister, or whoever brings a little bit, it brings it into a place where you have insulation, where there's somebody else watching you from inside, right? The mom will call me on the sly and she'll be like, I think he's high. Why, is he not sleeping? No, he is sleeping. And I go, okay, well, he's not high then. He's asleep, we're good. Let him sleep. Well, he's been sleeping for 2 days. And I go, let him sleep. Let him sleep. And I can't tell you how many times they'll call me and they'll go, okay, what's the sign if they're doing heroin? And I'm like, well, the first sign is if they're sitting there talking to you and they just suddenly fall asleep. And they're nodding and they're dipping their cigarette. That would be your first inclination. If they're high, they're probably cleaning up around the light fixture with a Q-tip. Right? Or they're cleaning the baseboards with a toothbrush. I only know that because my mom made me do that once. I thought, wow, this house is clean. You know, there's a lot of signs. We all do the same thing, you know. I really feel comfortable in this room. At first I thought, am I walking into friendly fire or am I walking into the firing range? Right? Do people in this room appreciate bail bondsmen, or do they think the bail bondsmen are evil and must be destroyed? Because that is the painful truth right now, is that people across this country are painting the bail bonds industry as a predatorial industry. Facebook and Google have cut us off from buying ads because we're predators. And so why do you still got plumbers? You kidding me? Why are the lawyers still up? What? Plumbers are predators. They go into your house, they know you don't know crap about your plumbing. And they go in there and they tell you, well, you need nickel plated, stainless steel. You know you can get by with copper. But they don't think you know that. Those are predators, for sure. Plumbers, you know, the drilling people. I could go on and on. But nonetheless, we were here before Google, we were here before Facebook, we'll be here after they are gone. I don't care how much money Mark Zuckerberg dumps into the no money bail movement. He will have to have people's crimes on his hands. He will have blood on his hands. People in this room, you really do know some people should be locked up. And some people should have a little more intense supervision than what you can give them. And sometimes you have to have a threat, right? If you don't do this, I'll do X. If you don't pay your fine, I'm gonna whatever. If you don't come in here clean, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. What is your threat right now? You can't put them in jail for dirty UAs. You can't put them in jail for association. You can't put them in jail for almost anything. Like they really have to do something bad, like they got to kill someone, basically. Or get caught in a shootout, or something horrible for them to get their pretrial release bond revoked. But where does that leave you folks in community corrections? Where does that leave you? How do you get, and I asked Rodney this about 10 times last night, but how do you get them to do what you want them to do when you have nothing over them? Does anybody have an answer? Anybody? I really am looking for an answer. I'm not just like, I am seeking this answer all across the country, to every place I speak, to everyone I go to, and I say, how are we going to run the aftercare of these folks that are being accused of crimes if we have nothing, no tools to work with? The bail industry is a tool to you. Okay, a lot of times they'll issue people to come to community corrections, but they're still on a bail bond. The community correction officer knows that the person's on a bail bond, and we're a tool to you because you know that you can call us up and say, hey, I need so-and-so's address. I need so-and-so's phone number. I haven't seen him in weeks. Can you have him call me? Can I tell you how many public defenders call my phone on a day-to-day basis and say, could you have my client call me? I can't find him. He won't respond to me. He won't come to my office. How am I supposed to defend him if I can't find him? Well, how are you supposed to try him if you can't find him? And how are you supposed to try him if no one's looking? You know? Some people may or may not agree with bail bonds or their authority to arrest, or, you know, possibly, you know, the people that sort of overstretch what their authority should be. But the real reality is that we are out there doing a job at no cost to the taxpayer. A user-funded service, if you will. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. Everybody sitting in this room right now is a cost to the taxpayer. We pay you folks to deal with our criminally accused and give them aftercare. And I know that most of you do that. I know you look for them jobs, you look for them housing, you help them get into churches or into places where they can get clothes and that they can get resources. And all of those things are so very vital to the criminal justice system. We need you. We need each and every one of you. And I just want to say thank you to every one of you for taking on that job, because I know that some days when you get in your car, you're like, my God, Calgon taking me home. right? And I appreciate the jobs that you do. And so in leaving here and in closing with you guys today, I would just like a little bit of consideration for what we do and for what part we play in the criminal justice system with you. And when these extreme measures come and they exclude bail or they exclude the surety, I want you guys to think about this. I want you to think about it on a day-to-day basis. Is that what's really good for our community? Is that what's right? You know, I love it that you have Katie on your community corrections board. I love it. I really, really love that you've brought everybody to the table. And it really says a lot that you want to work toward a greater good. And we have a beautiful state here in Colorado. It's beautiful. Everybody's running here because, of course, free weed, right? But honestly, I would rather have all my clients smoking weed because I know where they are, at home, on the couch. I can find them easier. And they're not violent. And they're not trying to kill me for crack. They're not trying to kill me for heroin. They're not trying to run from me because they know that when they get to jail, that the heroin, I call it kicking dope, that the heroin withdrawal is going to be so bad that they don't want to go to court just because of that. If you know all these things and you understand and you have compassion for your clients and you have compassion for them, you know, you can help them get through. But it's people like us, people in the bail community, parole, probation, community corrections, you know, Pier 1, these guys, you know, can you imagine working at Pier 1? I'm an ADAT certified drug and alcohol counselor, and I thought I might need that career choice later on down the road, and I realized I don't want that. Because we've got nothing right now. Our tool belt is almost empty. And when you get to a tool belt that's almost empty, we have to stand up for what's right, folks. We have to stand up to our community leaders, our county commissioners, and we have to say, no, we're not going to vote for this because it's trendy and it's cool and it's going around the country and yeah, no money bail and we hate those bondsmen. Yeah, it's not what's in the best interest of the community. It's not what's in the best interest for the state. And I really, really would appreciate you guys supporting us the way that we support you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having us. And, you know, I just want to introduce my hubby to anybody who doesn't know him. Honey, will you stand up? He was so gracious. He was so gracious to drive me here, and I'm sure some were surprised to see him, but he is my driver before he is my bounty hunter. So I thank him and my daughter for both giving up their weekend to drive up here with me for such an important cause to see you guys. And I appreciate your attention, and no one walked out of the room, and nobody was taking phone calls, and I so appreciate the attention that you gave me and the respect. Thank you so very much. Aloha, hui-ho. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, solo cup with you, right? Little common sense.